Are you willing to stay in the fire without complaining? Oh, let me say that again. I said, are you willing to stay in the fire without complaining? What am I talking about, you guys? I'm talking about how God puts us through certain things, you guys. And a lot of things that he puts us through may be very painful, right? They may be very uncomfortable, right? So are you willing to stay there? You have to know, child of God, that whatever God allows in your life, I don't know what you're going through right now. I don't know the painful situation that you are experiencing. But whatever it is, child of God, are you willing to stay there, right? Are you willing to suffer through that, right? Until the will of God is complete in that situation, right? I would say God puts us in situations, you guys, to teach us something or to help us to grow or to gain wisdom. So are you willing to stay there, without complaining and just trusting God through the whole process, right? Without complaining, because we have a tendency, you guys, of complaining, whenever we're in a hard situation or a tough situation, or we're going through some type of uncomfortability. What happens is we begin to complain to God. Oh Lord, why can't you take me out of this, Lord? I can't take no more, God. Why me, God? Like when you complain like that, child of God, it's like that very attitude of complaining is what God wants to break off of your life. So because you complain when you're going through, what's going to happen, God is going to leave you there, right? Until from your heart, you say, God, I don't want to go through this, but I'm willing to go through this. As long as I know that you're with me while I'm going through it, I can trust you that when I come out, I'm going to be stronger than I was when I went in. So are you willing to stay in that lonely place, that place of isolation, right? Are you willing to stay in the wilderness? Like, are you willing to stay in that place of solitude, right? Are you willing to stay in that struggle, that thing that you're going through? I'm talking about, are you willing to stay there without complaining, child of God? Many times we're in the fire as long as we are because of the spirit of complaining, right? There's no trusting in God. Like there's no true trust in God. The Bible says to trust in the Lord with all your heart. Now you have to trust God knowing that this thing that he's allowing you to go through, that there's a purpose for it. There's a reason why he's allowing you to go through it, child of God, right? God don't just put us through things and for no reason. No. Sometimes God got to allow you to be hurt in order for you to learn what hurt actually feels like, or what God is trying to produce behind the pain. But what God has in mind, child of God, the whole purpose God allows us to go through things, right? What he has is your destiny. He has your purpose in mind. He has that place that he's prepared for you. That is the thing that he has in mind, child of God. So if you can just trust God through what you're going through, right? You're going to be all right. You're going to be all right. And I'll say this, right? After you go through the first one, or maybe the second one, or the third one, you begin to know, because once you come out, you're going to look back and say, okay, God, that's why you had to allow me to go through that, right? So it's like the Bible said, weeping may endure for a night, right? But joy comes in the morning. So how would you know what the joy feels like if you have not wept at night? Did you catch that in the spirit, right? So it's like everything is a lesson, you guys, right? Because God can surely take us out of things, right? We can be in things, he can take us out. But sometimes he allows you to go through that, right? He wants to teach you something through that. There's always a lesson in what he's trying to show you in that situation that you're in, right? There's always a lesson. There's always something that he's trying to show you. There's always something that he's trying to help you to grow in, right? So God can take you out of a situation that's painful, but he allows you to go through it. And sometimes God will put you in the midst of a very situation that you tried your best to stay out of, right? So now you have to deal with this thing. Like now you got to struggle and suffer through this thing, because if God never allows you to go through any painful situations, how would you grow? How would you know what to look for in the future? I'm just saying. How? You have to have the experience, child of God. You have to have the experience. It's like if you continue to run away from everything that happens and God continues to never let you go through anything, if he continues to keep saving you and bringing you out of every hard situation, you'll never learn anything, right? And what would you have to minister to anybody about, right? You can minister to somebody about a situation that you've been through, child of God, that was a hard situation. You can tell them how God brought you out, right? And so someone else that may need to hear what it is that God did in your life, how he brought you out of a situation that you may have thought that was hopeless, that you could never come out of, is somebody that's going through that same very thing that needs hope. They need to know that God can bring them out. He brought me out. Hold on, child of God. He's going to bring you out as well. Your situation is not hopeless, right? I remember some years ago, I was at a church. This is when I first started kind of walking with the Lord. And I was just give a testimony in my church of how God delivered me from drugs, and, you know, he delivered me from alcohol. And I was just saying how I was in and out of jail, and, you know, I had been shot up and, you know, overdosed on drugs. Like, it was just bad. Like, I was just sharing my testimony because I didn't know nothing about how to preach. I just went up in front of the church and I just said, I want to tell a little bit about the goodness of the Lord and, you know, the things that he did in my life. And I just began to share a testimony, you know, not knowing that someone needs to hear what it is that I've been through that's going to give them hope that they can get through it as well. So afterwards, this young man came up to me, you know, and he was like, man, I'm going through the very same thing that you went through. I'm glad that you was able to share that, because I really needed to hear that. My situation, it looked hopeless. You know, I'm strung out on drugs really bad, and, you know, it looked like I can't change. And he was saying how, I know it's not by chance that I'm here tonight. I needed some encouragement. You see what I'm saying, you guys? But what if God would not have allowed me to suffer and to struggle through those things? I would have nothing to minister to anybody about, right? Now, God is going to bring you through, though it may look hopeless, though it may look like that situation is not going to change. It always looks like that when you're in it, right? But there's a date when God is going to bring you out. There's a date of your deliverance. There's a date when you're going to look back on that thing and say, I didn't see that thing ending, but I'm over it. Now I'm out of it, right? So God knows that he's going to bring you through that hard, tough situation, child of God, right? But what it does is it gives you a testimony, and it gives you a testimony to tell somebody else about the goodness of the Lord, right? So you have to know that whatever you're going through, child of God, it don't matter what it is, how painful it is, you know, there's always a purpose that God is trying to do behind it. He ain't gonna let it take you out of here, right? Because he needs that story. Somebody needs to hear that about the goodness of the Lord and you know what he's done in your life, right? So do not despise when things begin to go bad or things begin to get hard in your life. There's always something that God is trying to produce behind the pain, child of God, right? So you have to just go through it, endure as a good soldier, because after you come out, you're going to be so much wiser. You're going to know how to deal with situations, right? You're going to have the experience, right? So do not despise that, child of God. You know, just go through it and trust God that you're going to come out of it. And again, when you come out, you're going to be so much stronger in the Lord. All right, child of God. So I just wanted to encourage somebody today that may be going through a hard time, and it looks helpless and it looks hopeless. It looks like it'll never change, right? And I'm telling you, it just looks like that because you're in it, child of God. Again, like I said earlier, you're going to come out and you're going to look back at that situation and you're going to say, I did not see my way out of that, but now I got through it. I'm out of it. God, I see why you had to allow me to go through that. I needed to learn this lesson. And this lesson that I learned, it prepares me. It prepares me for the future, right? It equips me, right, with the tools that I need. If I go through this again, I know how to handle it. You see what I'm saying, child of God? So, yeah, don't get upset with the Lord, or don't complain, and you know what I'm saying? Like, because that's what the devil wants us to do. He wants us to complain. He wants us to keep our eyes on the situation that we're going through. He wants us to focus on that versus focusing on the God that is able to bring you out of the situation that you're going through, right? So just keep your eyes on the Lord, child of God. You're going to get through. And when you get through, you're going to be like, I needed that. All right? So be blessed.